Impulse shopping can be one of the stickiest habits that most of us struggle with, and it's really hard to let go, especially in the world we live in now where everything is super convenient and the opportunity to spend money is literally at our fingertips throughout the day. So, for today's episode, I pulled together 5 tips that we can use to help reduce the impulse purchases and be more intentional about where we spend our money. So these will be great additions to your current budget routine or just to help you save more money, even if you don't have a budget routine yet. So let's get to it.
Are you ready to stop the chaos, the stress, the overwhelm that's filling your life? I'm Renae Matt, and together you and I are going to build simple routines that are going to change your life. When you put these habits into practice, you're going to be able to organize your life in a way where you can be there for your family, pay off your debt, save money, your house can stay organized, you don't have to stress about what's for dinner, and you still get time for yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Routine Advantage Podcast.
When we think of impulse shopping, you might think like that's not something that I deal with. But when we are looking at all of the different ways that we spend money, it could be on Amazon, it could be while you're window shopping, it could be at the grocery store or when you're shopping for other things, and then other additional things that you see as you pass by just get added to your cart or your basket. And all of a sudden, you're spending much more than you had intended to. We also are looking at ads online when those advertisements come up and they kind of catch us and intrigue us. And then all of a sudden, we find ourselves buying those things. Or even if you are watching a lot of influencers on social media and you have people that you follow and they're recommending things and you have begun to trust them, so you want to get their recommendations. There's nothing wrong with just buying specific things that you are looking at and having these recommendations as long as they are not affecting how your budget is. So, if you are feeling like you need to kind of cut back on this impulse spending, then that is what is going to make the difference. If you don't think that you have a problem and your finances are just fine and you don't think this is an issue, then I'm not going to say you have to stop impulse purchasing. Like, that's not the case of what we're talking about here. But if you're struggling with this and this is something you want to address, then that's where all of these tips can come in. And even if you don't feel like you're struggling, maybe think about these and just see and kind of ask yourself, is this something that I could use that would help me save more money, even though I don't necessarily think that that is an issue right now? So it's just some food for thought. Just think about it. But there are a lot of different ways that we end up impulse buying. And these are just 5 tips that can help you kind of cut back on this, or even just take a step back and evaluate, is this actually something that you want to buy? All right, so let's get into the tips. Number 1 is to create a shopping cart rule. Now, this one works best online. However, I do have a tip later that applies to more in-person shopping. But this one, especially when you are online shopping, create a shopping cart rule where you go ahead and add what you want to your cart, but then don't allow yourself to check out immediately. So if you see something and it sparks your interest and you're used to going in, adding it to your cart and just checking out right away, I would encourage you to create a rule that you have to wait a certain amount of time before you check out. Now, this could be overnight where you allow yourself to buy it the next day. It could be next week. It could be next paycheck. It could be next month's budget. Like, budget for it the next month if you want to wait that long. But what you end up doing when you create this rule is that you put it in your cart because you get that initial drive of adrenaline, or I don't know, is it endorphins maybe that you are getting when you add it to your cart, because it does become an addictive habit. So when you add it to your cart and then just wait, you're not saying you can't purchase it. It's just waiting to see if you actually want it. So the longer you wait, obviously, the more you are going to kind of pull this impulse purchasing habit away, and it's going to allow you to give it more thought. but you're also questioning, do I actually need it? So if you're waiting until your next paycheck to buy these things, you might even forget what was in the cart. So then it's clear that you didn't actually need it. You might have wanted it, but you didn't actually need it. And you might have regretted spending that money on it. So that's just one thing to think about. The other thing is that when you add things to the cart, because it is such a big push to get sales and they have these, automated workflows set up where data is being tracked and things like that. Sometimes they have access to your email, or if you have an account with them and you shop through there and then you have something in your cart, a lot of times they will kick an email out to you and say, "Hey, did you forget this? Here's, 10% off," or whatever it is. So not only are you questioning, do I actually need this item, and potentially saving money by deciding not to purchase it later, but you could also save more money because then they are pushing out discounts because they want you to buy that. So this is a really good test. My husband and I started doing this, and we kind of go in phases where we get really good about it and then we get kind of lazy about it, and all of a sudden we realize that we're spending a lot more than we want to, especially on Amazon. That's a big one, and we're just adding things to the cart, but then we kind of get lazy and we just start checking out right away. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, why are we spending so much money on Amazon? And then we realize, okay, we need to implement the cart rule again and actually wait until the next month. We like to do the following month because then it doesn't throw our budget off and we can actually budget for it. And then a lot of times when it comes back around to review our budget, it's like, we don't actually need that. I forgot about it. I'm kind of over it. Let's just get that out of the cart. So it's a really interesting thing to do, but I highly recommend doing this if you are an online shopper, especially. The second tip is to create a list before you shop. Now, this one is especially important when you are doing any type of bigger shopping, like if you're doing grocery lists, if you're doing any household essentials, if you're going to Walmart or Target or anything like that, or getting cleaners and household supplies. And a lot of times we're putting things in the cart and we're passing other things, and all these other items from the aisles start getting dropped into the cart. And our bill at the end of the trip ends up being a lot more than what we had originally intended. So if you're going into any place, even if you're doing it online, if you're going on to make purchases, have a list ready to go of what you're buying, because then if you have a list, you're more likely to stick to your list and then actually be accountable to yourself to stick to your list. I don't need anything else. Let's just stick to the list. And so that is a huge help. I do have episodes that can help you with this. I have episode 17 is helping you create an essentials list to help you save that time, money, and frustration when it comes to buying household products and sticking to your list. But also, it is helping you to not run out of these household items. So you don't have to worry about running out of toilet paper or anything like that. Like, how inconvenient. So it's things like that that episode 17 will help you with if you're looking for that type of list creation. So, tip number 3 is to have a plan for your money. So, this is where you really want to create a budget. You want to know ahead of time where you are intending your money to go. That's going to help reduce the impulse purchases because you're going to know what your goals are for your money. So, when you are looking at creating a budget, I know it can feel really restricting because that is how I felt about it in the beginning. But when I actually began to do our budget with my husband, we realized how much more freedom a budget actually gives you because you're looking at your money ahead of time and you're choosing where it's going. So you know exactly what needs to go to bills, what needs to go to other expenses, what needs to go to savings, to fund money, to whatever your plan is for your money, and you can make those adjustments and tweaks ahead of time if you want to look at something different. So maybe you have a little bit less money coming in that month. Where can you make those changes without it stressing you out? If you have a little bit more money coming in that month, then what are you going to do with that additional money? When you're making the plan ahead of time, you're going to be more likely to stick to the categories that you're doing as well. So if you have an amount that is set for, extra essentials, or maybe you have an amount set for clothing or personal items and things like that, then you're going to look at that and before you make these impulse purchases, you can pull up your budget and say, okay, how much money do I have for that this month? And you can look at how much you have versus how much that thing is going to cost you and then decide, is this worth it? And if it's not, then it's going to give you more confidence to just put it back and not worry about buying it because that's not going to fit into your plans. So if you have not done a budget yet and not created a budget yet, I highly recommend you do that. And the first thing that you're going to start with is by creating a base budget. And I have an episode for the base budget as well. Let me pull that up here too. So when you're creating your base budget, that is episode 16 is to help you create that base budget. And then once you create your base budget, then you need to know what to do with it. And that is where you go into actually tracking your expenses, which is going to be super helpful. So that is episode 32 is that once you have that base budget ready, how to actually go through and start tracking your expenses and to help you create sinking funds and things like that. So having that budget is just going to give you basically a map. You can map out where you want your money to go, and then you can actually follow it better rather than just not really having a plan and knowing what to do because then you don't really know where you're at and you don't know how much you're spending on these impulse purchases and things like that. So it's just very, very helpful to have a plan ahead of time. Tip number 4 is to track your goals. Now, this is similar to the budget, but if you're like, I am absolutely not budgeting right now, that is something that will work on you. If you're scared of budgeting, it takes away so much stress. It's just so good. So I highly encourage you to consider it. But if you're just not at that point where you are not putting a budget into place, you really want to still track your goals, whether or not you're doing a budget. So, this is looking at how much do you actually want to spend in certain areas? Maybe it's at a certain location. So, if you struggle with Amazon, maybe you look at, okay, how much do I actually want to spend on Amazon this month? So, you're not necessarily budgeting all your money, but you're giving yourself a goal to stick to. So, maybe you are saying, I don't want to spend more than $100 on Amazon. I don't want to spend more than $400 on Amazon this month. You're going to have to look at what works for you. So you could do this by retailer, you could do it by, the type of item or the type of purchases that you're making and just give yourself a limit. Like this is how much I want to stay within for this month and then try your best to stay within that amount because say you're shopping for a lot of clothes all the time, maybe that's the limit you give yourself. Like I want to stay within X amount and this is my goal. So now when that comes up and I'm impulsively putting things in my cart, then I can ask myself, is this going to align with the goal that I set? And do I actually need these things? Or would I rather save this money for a different outfit or a different piece or something else that I would rather spend my money on this month? So it's creating goals like that to stay within your category. It's also tracking your progress towards any savings goals. So when we reduce our impulse buying, we're also saving money. So then we get to plan where we're putting that money. Now, if you are in debt and you're putting all of this stuff on credit, that's even more reason to stop the impulse purchases and get a handle on your debt so that you can pay it off. But what we're looking at is hopefully if you are reducing your impulse purchases, it's keeping money in your pocket. So you're able to create a plan for your savings. So are you building your emergency fund? Are you building a sinking fund for a vacation? Are you building a sinking fund for home repairs or vehicle maintenance? Things like that where we want to build that savings account. So track that, have a goal of how much you're trying to save. And you can do it on a whiteboard, you can do it on your phone, on your notes app, you can do it in a spreadsheet. You could download a ton of different savings goal coloring sheets and then just fill those in every time you save a certain amount of money and try and reach your goal. It just makes it a little bit more fun to celebrate when you are sticking to these goals and saving more money by not impulse buying. So that's just a fun one, but I think it's really important to track your goals. And then tip number 5 is to challenge yourself with no spend days. This one can be really hard, especially the mindset around it. And especially if you tend to do a lot of impulse purchases or little random stops at, gas stations, or I'm just going to run to the grocery store quick. Basically, you assign days that you aren't spending any money. So this could be, a couple of days. It could be standing days where it's repeating every month. I'm not going to buy anything on Monday through Friday of every week. I am not going to buy anything on Mondays and Thursdays. Whatever it is. You could also do it where it's just, I'm just not buying anything else for the rest of the week. I'm not buying anything else for the month. People do full, like, no spend months. They do full no spend years, which I think is absolutely insane, but is so cool. But what you're doing is you're basically agreeing to not buy anything that is unnecessary that you don't already have in your home. So you're using up what you have, because so many of us have what we need in our homes already. We don't actually need to go buy, because we're buying like a different brand, or we're just buying a replacement of something, even though we're not fully done with the first one, things like that. So it just gives you a chance to really hone in that spending and limit it. So that is something to consider. And if you are struggling with this, I would not recommend starting with a year of no spend. Like, I don't think I would be able to do that. I would even struggle doing a no spend month, I think. But I can definitely do a no spend week or a no spend days where it's like, okay, we're just going to chill. We want to save the money we have. We don't need anything else. We're good for the next 4 days, and we don't need to buy a thing. So we don't buy anything through that time. And I think that helps a lot of just getting out of that habit of constantly spending. So I hope you can take these and really think about them. And I hope that they help you if you are struggling with this, because there are so many things around us that we can buy. And the convenience of being able to buy so much makes it even harder. So we have to be really, really intentional about changing up these habits of constantly impulse buying by just being intentional about what we're trying to do. And these tips are going to help you do that. I will recap those for you so we can go through them again really quickly. So, number one is to create a shopping cart rule. Number two is to create your list before you shop and hold yourself accountable to stick to that list. Number three is to create a plan for your money. Create that budget and know ahead of time where you are wanting your money to go. Number four is to track your goals by either staying within a certain category or even your progress towards your savings goals. And number five is to challenge yourself with no spend days. So I hope this helps you to quit that impulse shopping that is killing your budget by using these 5 tips to help quit that habit and save more money. I will catch you back here on the next episode. We always release episodes Mondays and Thursdays. So if you've ever wondered how often episodes are released, it's Mondays and Thursdays. They're always coming out. And if you have not had a chance to leave a rating or review for the show yet, I would so appreciate it. It just takes maybe a minute or two at the most, but you're just going into your favorite podcast app wherever you listen, and there's usually, depending on which app you're in, they will have a chance to rate the show and leave a 5-star rating. And then they will also have sometimes a chance to write a review. In Apple Podcasts, I know they have a chance to write a review, but I would absolutely love to hear from you. And it also helps the podcast to get shared in the podcast algorithms to more people when they see that people are rating and reviewing the show. So not only is it just so great for me to be able to read them. I love reading them when they come in, but it also is helping other women find this show that are looking for something like this. So I would greatly appreciate it if you'd take the time to do that. Otherwise, I will catch you back here on the next episode.
Did you love that episode or learn something useful? If so, would you do me a huge favor? My goal is to grow this podcast and help as many women as I can break free from the overwhelm so they can truly enjoy their life. The best way for me to do this is for you to leave a 5-star written review on your podcast app and to share this episode with a friend or in your Instagram stories. I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care.